All right. I am going to declare a quorum and call the City of Groton Mayor and Council meeting for Monday, June 18th, 2018 to order. First, Patrick, please call the roll.
Present are Mayor Keith Petrick, Deputy Mayor Lawrence Garish, Councilors Jill Russ, Jamal Beckford, Stephen Sheffield, Brigadier Rico, Michelle Carter, Finance Director Bob Newhouse, Clerk Deborah Patrick.
May you please stand and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, recognition awards and memorials. Anyone? Okay. The next line item is receipt of citizens' petitions and comments. This is a portion of the agenda where citizens can speak to the council. You'll be given 3 minutes. You'll be given 3 minutes to for your presentation. This is meant to deliver to the council. It is not meant to be a back and forth or an interactive conversation. It is for you an opportunity to speak. When you come to the podium, please state your name and your address for the record, please.
I was hoping to turn it off because it's so loud.
Can't hear
But I
anything.
don't know.
Just can you press all?
No, I think we'll be okay with the microphones.
Really hear us.
The first speaker is Anthony Sherrillo.
Who?
You might just say that.
Yeah, you might want to say into the mic.
Does she have the mic?
Yes, please.
That's right.
Thank you, sir.
So I've looked at
3 minutes.
some of the information involved with the decision that, yes,
Can you
my
say
name
it?
is Anthony Sherrillo. I live at 48 Chestnut Hill Square in Groton, Connecticut.
Thank you.
That's CHIRILLO. So I've looked at some of the information in regards to the decision that you folks need to make tonight. I'm not as knowledgeable as I'd like to be at this point due to all the fault of my own, but it seems like it's a pretty big decision, and regardless of the decision you make tonight, I'd like to think that you would be able to make your decision bound with the direction if you decide to add additional cost for the sewer, maybe bind that money and earmark it so it can not be used in other manners and only for what it's intended. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not. I know it's not a two-way street, but you know, for some of us that's quite a bit of money. You know, the taxes and the reoccurring costs in our state are fairly high already, and I'd like to think that we would do, you know, for our taxpayers, our shareholders, our co-owners of this city, so to say, the justice of trying to keep the reoccurring annual cost down, so it's still a good place to retire on a fixed income. So really, not having as much knowledge as I probably should, please listen to the people that are coming behind me that have more knowledge than me, and if you do decide to vote for the additional tax, please try to find a way to bind it and make it of specific use so it doesn't change down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Boucher.
Howdy. Mike Boucher, 16 Hillside Avenue. I was here early on, probably back in January, and I spoke about my concerns of the sewer tax and the effect it would have on the poor, working families, and nonprofits. It sounded like a good deal. I just spoke with Tina. Originally, I was saving 60%, but now with the figures, I'm actually adding another couple $100. I'm opposed to the huge increase in the sewer budget from $1.7 million in last year's budget under city property tax system to the $4.9 million budget under the Groton utilities. I think that point was missed by most ratepayers. if you want to know the true effect of how your sewer fee is going to affect you, you need to combine this year's sewer fee and your taxes and compare that to last year's taxes, which also included your fee for the sewer. That's the only way people are really going to know the true effect of the increase. With this huge $4.9 million budget, the effects are even more dramatic on the poor and working families, and I think you need to phase it in somehow. I don't think it's fair that you have a new group of people that cannot afford these kinds of increases. So in an effort of fairness, I think it needs to be phased in. A huge jump like that's just totally unacceptable for working families. For me, it's not a killer. I mean, basically, you're taking the burden off the wealthy and you're putting it on the backs of the poor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay Dempsey.
Jay Dempsey, 22 South Prospect Street, Groton City. Thank you to the mayor and council. I appreciate what you guys do, and I know it's mostly volunteer work. And I sat here with Larry too, I mean, years ago, and Steve, and I mean, appreciate what you do. What I want to say is if you accept the GU budget as presented, this will be the largest tax increase in the history of Groton City, impacting hardest or most vulnerable residents. I've done the sewer calculations. I'm going to hand these to everybody. I have enough to pass out, and I want you to know that I want you to all understand the impact of your GU budget approval tonight and the implication of sewer fees versus bonding for sewer upgrades. The city fees for myself and my neighboring properties will range from 17 to 100. The first page is all the sewer calculations, and then there's backup documents.
You want one for each?
Just the front, just the front part. Thank you. Thanks, Joe. One of the most important things, the increases will range from 17 to 110%. Only the most wealthy homes on the water will see a possible decrease. Will the sewer fee money be kept in a lockbox account to be used only for sewer infrastructure? It is important that the city is upfront with its residents and taxpayers. I'm not against sewer usage fees as a whole, but the way we're going about this is wrong. It's important the city is upfront. The city of Groton Utilities has a history of moving money around between accounts without mayor and council approvals. I provide to you examples of that. CMEC money to TVC and GU money to TVC totaling $12 million. The last example would be something Mayor Hedrick and Council Garish are aware of from when I was on the council, and Stephen. Another $260,000 for the electric division to TVC for a true-up of sale. That also was not approved by the mayor and council under the advisement of the city attorney and GU management. Electric profits and electric revenues are down, and CMEC is holding millions of dollars of our city money. Why are the city residents going to be hit so hard without first tapping into the CMEC money? We own over 50% of CMEC. The city CAFR should have been out a month before the Freeman meeting so people could understand the financial condition of the city. Another important fact, what is going to happen next year? Where will the extra $3 million in sewer fees go? Will we just be lining our sewers with gold, or will we be building something down at the sewer plant? I know we bonded, when I was on the council, I think we bonded for the sewer improvements down there. I am not against sewer usage fees for nonprofits. If they should pay their fair share. But if you look at, I've got one example of military family, a guy just went off on deployment. His city fees will increase 110%. You can call them fees, but it's really an increase in tax. Thank you so much.
Can I ask just a quick, only because we didn't get all the paperwork.
Oh,
I wasn't sure what he was referring to.
No, that's for you. That's backup documentation.
is it backup documentation for everybody, or is it just one copy?
You'll have to copy it, I guess, if they want to read it. They can pass it around. What it is it has the documents from the tax assessor. It has the assessments for their properties. So you can see that I did the calculations accurately. The other two documents are the 4 years of TVC money sent over from the electric division, 11.2 million. One of the last documents was a CMEC document, $500,000 that went to TVC that nobody also knew about. Those are just for your information.
Is there anyone else?
Rich Aspinwall.
Good evening, Rich Aspinwall, 72 Plant Street, Groton. I'm here to reiterate what you've already heard. I'm actually here to speak for my son, who is unable to be here today. But what we're doing here is we're putting an unfair burden on the young families with small children. I just don't agree with the formula. I'm not opposed to sewer use taxes throughout most municipalities. Again, we're putting an unfair burden on the younger families. Thank you.
Patrick, is there anyone else?
That was it.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Okay. Moving on. Response to citizens' petitions, comments. Council? I want to respond to Mr. Cirillo's comment. This is an enterprise account for sewer, so all of the fees and all of the money for the sewer account goes to the sewer. It doesn't go to the water, it doesn't go to electric. Electric's supposed to stay in electric, water's supposed to stay in water, and sewer's supposed to stay in sewer. That's the way it is designed to work, and that money's not going to be used for anything else. The money was, there's an amount that is put aside for projects. We have a list of projects that is from the WPCA, of the projects that they want to do. We had started bonding. That money has been used, and now this money, as it builds up, will be used for projects. So that's what that's for.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Russ, do you have a?
I want to say thank you to everybody who came tonight, and I'm hearing you. I'm definitely hearing you, and I understand your concerns. My main point in voting for this was kind of the opposite of what you're presenting. So I looked at my neighbor who had a house about the same size as mine on my same road, who is 90 years old and lives alone. And then I looked at my family of 5, and I can't see that she is paying the same amount that I am. So I looked at the sewer fees and thought this is far more fair for her than it is. I mean, if mine goes up, it's because I use more money, or I use more water because there's 5 of us, versus my neighbor. I understand your concerns with young children. I understand, small young families with lots of kids. So I'm hearing you. And that is definitely something that we discussed. I know Councilor Carter brought up the concern about poor families, and we really were trying to make this as fair as possible to have everybody pay their fair amount, because when it came down to like the fact that Avery Point wasn't paying, that concerned me. When it came to churches and nonprofits, I can't say that this is going to affect them a lot. It will affect them. I get that. It's going to affect a lot of people. So I guess my point is I want you to know that we're hearing you and we understand your concerns, and we have addressed we've spoken about a lot of those concerns. But really, my vote was yes to it because I thought of my neighbors who are elderly, and I can't see them paying the same amount that I'm paying.
One of the things that I've already spoken with the utility director about is that if this budget is approved during this first year, I want to monitor this very closely to ensure that it is doing what we want it to do. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I want to look at, I do not want to reinvent the wheel. I want to look and see if we need to make course corrections. And that may be look at flat fees, it may be look at lowering the fees, it may be talking to the operators of the pollution abatement facility and asking them to reprioritize the work that needs to be done there, and maybe we need to look at lowering the fees. But all those things are on the table. We need to have some runtime on this to make sure this is going to work and do what we thought it was going to do. So we are one of the last municipalities to do sewer use fees. There are lots of people all around us that do have user fees, and they have been around for a long time. So we are looking at it. Councilor Depot.
A few things. In regards to, Mr. Dempsey was asking where the sewer fees will go. There is a budget available from the utilities that is on the agenda to vote on tonight. That tells you where the fees are going, and there's a narrative in here for a lot of the expenses. And I can say that, we have asked a bunch of questions of the utility company on the items, and probably will ask more questions going forward, but there is information in the budget as to where the money is going. It's not just all going to the sewer department with no, notification. It's got details in there. Also, I would like to say, I'm new to the council this year. I have done a ton of research on what's happened in the past, dozen years or so on the council, and I would like to say that this is a different council than there has been in the past. I was actually surprised with the amount of transparency that is on this council compared to previous councils and compared to just the news that I've read of other towns and other things that go on and talking to other people. So in terms of the budget, I know in the past some people have expressed unhappiness with the way that the utility company is monitored, but I feel like with the way that it is run now, I have the ability to ask for anything I want, from if I want to review an expense, or if I have a question about something, it is invited. I'm not told that I'm not allowed to know about the utility company. All that information is available. So while the concerns about transparency are valid, I would say that I feel like I have any information that I want on the utility budget as a council member, and again, this is a different council than there was before, so I would ask that people at least don't burden, me, I don't want to be burdened with the crimes of people in the past, not crimes, but, the attitudes of people in the past, or, I'm a different person than the other people that were here. And I would like to say, this is a big change, but we debated a lot and we talked about it a lot. So, I do think we should be given at least a chance to kind of just speak our piece and let you know, like Jill did, this is our thought. And I was thinking the same thing as Jill. I have a house, there's only 2 people in my house, and the people next door have, a whole bunch of people. So it is kind of more fair to have people pay for what they use in terms of the utilities, I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Garrett.
I'd just like to thank those people who got up and spoke. Some of you have spoken here to us before, and the information that you've got, I know a lot of you have done a lot of research and a lot of work, and we have learned from some of your hard work, and we do appreciate it. But I have to echo the same comments that the other councils, Councilor Rusk and Councilor Depot, we've talked about this a lot, and the utility business, the utility company, is a huge budget. And now, instead of it being just water and electric, we're going to have water, electric, and sewage. We had sewage before, and we were paying for it. Now it's going to be paid for by a different means. But I think in the long run, it will be fairer, and I know that Mayor Hedrick will be keeping a close watch, as we will, on how it works. So
So, but I do appreciate all the hard work that some of you folks have done to do the research that you presented to us. So, thank you.
Any other council? Councilor Carter.
I appreciate you, especially you guys speaking up for the working class and the people that just simply can't even be here because they're working or just unable to attend, you know. I speak for that class as well, so don't many people on the council, if not all. We're in that class, you know. I think with this, it was almost like there are more, I can't say positive than negatives, but there was more to gain than to lose. And I think that what we have to gain is worth giving a go, at least for now, with the heavy watch of you guys. We're only going to know what we're going to gain or lose after we let this play its course. We just simply don't know. Everybody has valid points, but I don't want you guys to think that, you know, this is an easy decision for any of us, you know. It's just not, you know. But that's all I have to say about it, you know.
Anyone else?
You know, I'll say a few words. So, yeah, you know, even I'm looking at this too. We had pulled, in order to make our decision, we pulled an anonymous list of housing.
Hard time hearing you.
Oh, I'll speak louder and into the mic. We looked at an anonymized list, and we never saw anything that was out of the bounds like we see here. When we saw, you know, differences, I think we're talking 5%, 10% difference. So I'm actually kind of surprised to see this. I see some nice round numbers on here as well, which, you know, I'm not sure how accurate this is. But we deliberated on this quite a bit. This was not a decision that I was actually for originally, and I came in here and I bothered Ron and the mayor, and I said, I want to see some numbers and make it, I got to believe in it. And so we did that, and we got those numbers. And, you know, I am convinced. I feel like this is no different than, say, electricity. You have the switch turned on, you're going to be paying for it. You turn it off, you're not going to be. And I think, you know, people may have to be a little bit more conscientious with how they're using the water. But I think it is a little bit fair, like Jill has said, to pay for what you use for. That's all I've got.
What were your last? Okay. All right. I'm going to move to approval of the minutes. I need a motion to approve June 4th, 2018 Mayor and Council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimously. Communications and reports, Councilor Russ.
We didn't do the committee of the whole minutes.
It's not on
No. Oh, wait.
script.
We didn't approve the. Oh, they're not on the agenda.
They're not on the agenda.
We'll approve them the next meeting. Okay.
Well, you could make a motion to suspend the rules to add them.
Either one. What would you like?
Clerk, which would you like to do?
I'm up here.
Okay.
I move.
Let's see. I need a motion to suspend. Hold on, you just put my motion. I need a motion to suspend the rules to add the committee of the whole minutes for Monday, June 11, 2008.
I'll make that motion that we suspend the rules to include the City of Groton and Town of Groton Special Committee of the Whole minutes on Monday, June 11th, 2018.
So moved.
So we have a motion and a second to include it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay, so now we're voting on the minutes of the joint City of Groton, Town of Groton Special Committee, the whole minutes for Monday, June 11, 2018. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Councilor Rusk. Okay, communications and reports.
On June 13th, I attended the Board of Ed liaison meeting. We talked about when the meeting was going to be. It's going to be the first Wednesday of every month from 5:30 to 6:30. And the purpose of the meeting is to facilitate communication between the Board of Ed, the Town Council, the RTM, and the City Council. So the hope is that before the August 1st meeting, that if there's anything that we as a group would like to communicate back, or any activities that are going on, that we do so at the next meeting. We also talked about Groton 2020. There's still the proposal to build the new middle school. The Board of Ed is still working on getting approval for the Merritt property. Currently, the Boulder Heights property and King property are being approved for kind of trade of the Merritt property, if I'm saying that correctly. The big concern is that if there's a delay in the work with the architect, it will delay the building. And the longer the building is delayed, the more it's going to cost, meaning the more that won't be able to be put in the building. So the hope is that it gets going very quickly. And then there's also the plan for the 2 elementary schools. And originally the plan had been to renovate Cutler and West Side. There's a new state law that says that the state needs to decide whether or not the buildings will be whether or not it would be less expensive to build a new building or to renovate the old, because of all the asbestos and the other issues that are potentially there in a renovation. So that will need to be determined also before that gets done. But the hope is that we will have a new middle school by September 2020.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Councilor Becker.
Nothing to report.
Councilor Chip.
Attended the ribbon cutting ceremony at Eastern Point Beach. The deputy, the mayor, and Councilor Depot. And that's all.
Okay. Councilor Depot.
I also attended the ribbon cutting for the concession stand at the beach, and it was a lot of fun. It was very cold on the backside because of the wind, but it was really nice to get to see them open up. And I think I mentioned this before, but just to see their menu and everything. They have a ton of options available when there's nice weather. Even today, I had a busy day, but I really wanted to go to the beach, but I couldn't. But if you are hungry, go down there just for lunch. It's really nice, and the repairs look amazing. So that's all.
Councilor Carter.
It was this past Thursday, I just went to the Groton Adult Ed graduation at Westside. Nice event. That's it.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Garrett.
Yes, I also attended the opening of the opening day for the concession at the beach this year. I'm very impressed and happy to see Mr. Kashmir in charge again. This is his second year, and if it's anything like last year, it should be very successful. Also, last committee of the whole meeting, we had the pleasure of meeting with the mayor and town council and the town manager on mutual business between the city and town. Very amiable meeting, very impressed with their dedication and cooperation with us, and hope that those meetings will continue in the future. I also attended the emergency planning and preparedness practice meeting on June 11th in preparation for an actual drill at another time. And that is about it.
Okay, thank you. I've had a couple Selfest Food Drive conference calls. The Selfest is on the 12th of July, and in conjunction with that, we will be collecting non-perishable food items. We're working with the Jim and Moran Food Center over in London, and with Foxwood, Mashantucket Foxwoods Casino, And I passed on the questions from the town council. They are Jim and Moran Center is, we're going to get the information back to them so they can determine whether or not they want to collect cash, and also whether or not we're going to put trucks not only in here, but also at a Big Y or Super Stop and Shop earlier that day. On the June the 7th, I attended a Town Economic Development Commission as a guest speaker. I took Sierra Patrick, who is our new Economic Development Specialist, with us, and with me, and with Cheryl Auerbach. She is the chair of the Economic Development Commission in the city. We talked about our initiatives that we're looking at, and are looking at ways that we can collaborate with the town's Economic Development Commission. So this is another area where we are reaching out with the town and to the town to work together for joint initiatives. On Saturday, June 9th, I attended Art on Groton Bank and Groton Bank Day. On June the 10th, I attended the flag ceremony at the Groton Lodge of Elks. It is always a tremendous ceremony where you get to learn the history about the flag, and then there's an actual flag ceremony outdoors where the Boy Scout troop changes out to flags. On the 14th, we had a conference call with the highway for a highway benchmark discussion with the town manager, myself, and the Novak group to talk about the way ahead and the benchmarking between the town and the city before we get much further into this. And then later that night, I had the opportunity to read a proclamation at the adult education graduation at Westside, which was a tremendous ceremony, very inspiring and uplifting. And then today we had a meeting at the USS Groton Sail Foundation to discuss the status of where that is. We are still looking to put the Groton Sail over by where the Flasher Memorial is, and we're still working and going in that direction. So that's all I have. Are there any committee referrals? Okay, we'll go to new business. Councilor Rusk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution R-18-6-69. Therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and council approve the City of Groton Department of Utilities electric budgets for fiscal year 2018-2019 pursuant to the City of Groton Charter, Article 11, Section 4A. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Did we get the full?
What's that?
Did we get the full budget again?
Well, we have the budget.
Yeah, we do. Right, but
I can.
I was gonna say, do you want my copy?
Can I get a copy of it, just so that
Well, I'll need it back, but.
I want to make sure that what I'm talking about is under the right section.
Okay.
Just ignore my notes.
I'm going to go ahead and bring up Director Gaudet and Finance Director Clark.
Can I actually go make a copy of this really quickly?
I'll give you mine.
You want electric?
Yeah. Yes.
I'll give this back to Mr. Depot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry to have mine. So I guess rather than waste everybody's time, I'm going to address my concern, and if it's not under electric and it's under another section, please let me know. So we talked about rent. Is that under electric or is that under something else? Rent.
Rent.
Putting.
It's under all three divisions.
Okay. So, can you give me an idea of how many employees actually have a desk space and how much extra space is needed?
We actually sat with the engineer, the architect today, and he went through the list. I didn't actually bring the details that I gave him, But I gave him a detailed list of everybody that's in this building for admin and everybody that used to be in this building that we would have liked to had here together. I can grab that or I can get that data for you, but there was on the order of magnitude of 20 to 25 people. How many people do you have, Tina? So it's 15 for customer service. We go right around. David, myself, Deb, Tara, E. Now come right down to billing. We have 1, 2, 3, then IT. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 plus IT. IT is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is 8.
So 27 plus 8? Okay.
In
23 plus 8.
23 plus 8? So we're looking at about 30 people, plus
Right.
or minus. Okay. And all of those people have desk spaces currently? Or you said some of those people are outside of the building already?
None of those people are in this building right now. All I did is go right at start in the corner and I counted all the seats.
I'm confused.
We counted all those seats.
Okay,
Everybody has a
hold on.
desk.
All the people that, you said none of those people are in the building. They're all in the building.
Oh,
And they all have seats.
Okay. Correct? Okay.
Yes. Now, just before you continue, we are, as an initiative we have a space issue here in the city that is no secret to anybody. We have hired a consultant group to help us figure out what our options are, and this is one of the things that we're looking at.
Correct. I just have a hard time putting $75,000 aside in this budget when that space study hasn't come back. So my other concern with that is that of those, we have 15 plus people in customer service, plus the two of you, so that's 17. So that's over half of these people that really can't leave this building. You are the face of GU. The municipal building is where people expect you to be. So to move you out of this building, that's 17 of those 30 people. So if we're looking at rent, I just have a difficult time putting $85,000 into rent into this building, plus $75,000 into rent in a theoretical building that may or may not happen. And we don't even know how many people actually need to move out.
We'd still need to approve that. This is just to put that money aside. I see what you're saying, but they can't go anywhere unless the council approves it.
And
so
I
that's a whole
understand
other
that.
issue. I mean, that's a whole other separate. This is in case I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. If the study comes back and it says, yeah, you guys need to go ASAP, that money's there for you guys to do what you have to do.
We're the study process and that separate team to decide to bring to you the option of some kind of modification in however people are sitting here. If we were to move ahead with this process, we would need to have money budgeted to be able to do that. All expenditures over $50,000 come to this council for approval anyway.
Right.
In the current year's budget, we actually had about $180,000 plus or minus for modifications to the office area over in operations. When we look at the line item budgets, we kind of go right across. The year before, we had about $150,000 for modifications to customer service that we never did because we were trying to figure out how to do things. And when we did the design on customer service was smaller than what the square footage would allow for the design. So we never moved ahead with that. So every year, including next year, there's about order of magnitude of about $150,000 to get to space issues. Were this building still not to be an issue, we would recommend, and if we don't spend that money in this building this year, we would recommend moving over to operations to work on the older half of that building where the electrical locker rooms were. So We cannot spend over 50,000 without coming to council for approval. So it just is a placeholder to do options as we move forward. The cost of service study set the electric rates for this year, next year, and the following year.
I'm sorry, what?
The cost of service study set the rates. So this is in effect just money that's there every year. If we don't spend it, it just stays in the checkbook.
I see what you're saying. I'm right there. We talked about this, but I think that conversation is for later. This is just to put the money aside just in case they need it. You know.
My direction to the contractor is to look for immediate needs, intermediate needs, and long-term needs. And one of the things I'm looking at is that, you know, if they come out and they say long-term, you need to build another wing to this building, that's going to be several $1 million. And then we're going to have to convince the freeman to build that and to bond that money. And right now, with the way that sentiment is and taxes are and things like that, that may be difficult. So we may have other things that we may need to do before we're able to get to that point. That's another additive. It doesn't necessarily answer your question.
I just wanted to know how many bodies we were actually looking at. I mean, and I don't mean to, it's wrong, how many employees we're looking at. I don't mean to reduce them to bodies by any means. I just want to make sure I know how many people we have, and if we move people, are we doing it because it's the right thing to do? Are we doing it to raise revenue? Are we doing it because it's, it's necessary? Or are we doing it because, I guess the space study will tell us a lot. I just have a hard time with adding that into the budget. My other question is, we've had decreased revenues in both water and electric this last year. Is there a plan to increase that in the next year?
The revenues for water and electric.
I'm sorry, I can really not hear anything in here.
The revenues for water and electric are based on the consumption. It's as much electricity as you use and as much water as you use. Okay, so that has been on a declining basis. The cost of service study has taken that into consideration. And even though the revenues are lower, that does not mean that the earnings are lower or that the earnings are inadequate to cover the cost of operating the business. Okay, the cost of service study took into consideration the decline in revenues, the increase in the rates that were increased in the base rates, cover the cost of doing the business, and take into consideration the declining consumption of the customer. The credits on the bill for purchased power provide the pass-through to the customer of the savings in the association with CMEC and the cost of the power and the earnings that we get through CMEC to offset that. So declining revenues don't necessarily mean that the bottom line is failing. And then you can look in the budget and you'll see that the bottom line is in line and the cash balances are falling into the plan from the cost of service study.
Any other questions? Any other questions on electric? Councilor Deep?
I do have a question, which I'm hoping there's a simple answer, but on the page that lists the contributions to the city of Groton, down towards the bottom, there's one of the little chunks says accounting service electric, finance department allocation, and then there's a blank under it, but there's an amount next to it. So I'm guessing it's a typo maybe, or maybe
No, it's not a typo. It's just that we didn't include. That's the division of the accounting services from the finance department between the three entities, the water, the electric, and the sewer. We just didn't.
Okay, so
Yeah. So then the $198,000 is the amount that's allocated to the electric division, $99,455 is allocated to the water division, and $33,152 is allocated to the sewer division.
So what you're saying is the title of that is those two
Accounting
line items
service.
together.
Yeah.
Accounting service electric finance department
That's
allocation, not accounting service electric stop finance department allocation stop, right? That whole,
Yes.
okay.
Yes,
Did
the
that-
total of that is the allocation that the finance department charges us for their services. The three items are taking the total and dividing it between the three divisions of the utilities.
Okay. Any other questions on electric? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimously. Okay, Councilor Beckler.
Resolution R-18-6-70. Therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council approve the City of Groton Department of Utilities water budget for fiscal year 2018-2019 pursuant to the City of Groton Charter, Article 11, Section 4A. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion for water? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimous. Deputy Mayor Garish.
Thank you. Resolution R18-6-71. Therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council approve the City of Groton Department of Utilities sewer budgets for fiscal year 2018-2019 pursuant to the City of Groton Charter, Article 11, Section 4A. I so move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilor Depot.
There's obviously lots of questions about the sewer budget. One kind of minor thing that I was just mostly curious about, and I think it's in all the budgets to do the new roof, or it's in the portion of to do the new roof, and I was just wondering how old the roof is, that's on the budget for this year.
In operations. It was before they built the extension.
It's on the old section. It's on the old section of the building that has been there for a long time. It's been leaking terribly.
Okay.
The new section of the building is not the portion that needs the roof replaced.
Okay. So we don't know how old the roof is.
I don't know how old that building is.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
When did they build the extension? 96?
Around there, between 96 and...
Yeah, the new side of the building was installed about 1996, and it was there before then.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have a question. You're talking about over and ops?
Yes.
But PAF's not over and ops, so why would they be charged with?
She asking just about the PAF because there is a roof for the operation.
Okay, what? Yes, but we're talking.
Yeah,
Okay, here we go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're talking about the sewer budget, and I'm having an issue with the sewer budget paying for operations when sewer's not over in operations, it's electric and water.
Yeah.
Now, we had talked about the roof over to PAF.
I believe we did the roof PAF as non-bonded capital for the PAF specific, so you would have picked it up in this non-bonded capital list. I believe
So it's a
that,
different one.
right, in sewer for the PAF. So over on top of the lab, the first building you go in where Kevin Sini's office is, the left side is where the lab is. That side of that roof is, I don't know how long, but it needed replacement with the project. They skinnied the project down not to do the roofs. Plus, if you go over to the lunchroom on the far side, apparently there's leaks in there also. And that was not put in the original project. So that is listed in the sewer budget as non-bonded capital. I believe the roof for operations was split 50-50 electric water.
Okay.
That was the way we've been,
Okay.
it was? Yeah, because
Well, I'm okay with that, I just want to make sure. I made a positive statement that said sewer fees are used for sewer only.
Right. And that-
It is important to me that when I say something is it's accurate and that I'm not misleading anybody. So this amount that's in here is for the PAF or the sewer facility down at the bottom of the hill, and that operations, electric and water is separate out of electric and water.
100% correct.
Okay.
David just,
I'm sorry, I misspoke. I have trouble getting used to saying sewer, and I'm so in tune to water and electric, but
I
that is
understand.
right. It is,
Got
the water, the roof on operations is 50-50 water and electric, because they both utilize that building. The roof funding in the sewer division is for the sewer solely.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry about
Councilor Depot,
that.
please continue.
And that's for two different buildings? On the capital projects page, it says new roof, 2 buildings.
that was an estimate. I hope it makes it, but that was what we put in the budget for it.
Yeah, because you got the main building when you come in, and then you have the other building that's out there next to the ponds. Go ahead, you're on a roll, go
Is
ahead.
that all right? I have one more question. So I know that we did not have a sewer division budget previously. So on the budget, under revenue, it's blank for last year's revenue. But do we have a number that is the amount we were receiving in taxes generated or signified as sewer?
Well, we'd come up, that was 28%, and I don't know what that number is.
Is it on the sheet that guy gave you?
No.
The sewer portion that came from taxes last year was the entire budget, less the $30,856 that comes from the county government for sewer fees.
I'm sorry, can you come up
Yeah,
and say that
I
on the
can't
mic,
hear
because I
you.
can't hear anything here.
Sorry, Ron.
That's okay. For the taxes, funded the full budget minus $30,000, which is the sewer fees that we receive from the town of Groton for the North Slope district that flows into our sewer system.
So what's that number?
So the number was just under 1.7, 1.672 in taxes, and then there's also the debt portion of that, which for last year. Was around 40,000.
40,000.
40,000?
40,000 for debt service, which does not include the 6 million, which that payment's coming due. The first payment will be in this new fiscal year.
So basically $2 million last year.
Correct.
Councilor Depot, please continue.
I think that's all my questions
Okay.
at the moment.
Councilor Russell.
Okay, so I'm going to just kind of go through all of the questions that were addressed by the residents and kind of one by one. So we already addressed Mr. Cirillo's concern about money being earmarked specifically for sewer will stay in sewer. Yes? Okay.
Yes.
100%.
Okay. Mr. Boucher questioned if we could phase it in somehow. How do you address that?
When we did the cost of service studies, we committed as the utility to make a 3-year plan for what we were doing for all the costs, for all the fees, all the increases or any changes in rate redesign. Of course, the water company came up with some 4% increases. The electric company has a redesign that basically keeps residential rates flat. The goal was to come up with a 3-year sewer usage fee that would hopefully be able to remain flat over the next 3 years, meaning the WPCA saw about 6 months ago, I believe it was a 5-year capital plan, and all the work that was recommended to do. There was work on that that went out further than that, but we took that 5-year capital plan, gave that to the REFTILIS, and we tried to fold in a long-term plan that would allow rates to be stable and long-term, along with having reasonable rates that were extremely competitive to surrounding communities. So that was where the budget got funded for, and what the essence of what you see in the budget is, and what the goal was with the fee to be able to keep it long-term. Already, what we're going to be doing on the capital spend side is being holding back as much as possible and only fixing what we absolutely have to until we get a good feel for the cash flow. Several reasons for that. Well, one primary reason for that. If people are now more aware of their water usage because it's been talked about so much, and additionally because it's basically doubling their water bill, they may become very conscious of their usage, meaning that our revenue numbers were based on the last 12 months brought forward into the future 12 months. Were there to be a 20% savings in water volumes, there is potentially a 20% shortfall in revenues. And we need to be able to build up a checking account cash balance. So that was how the rate was done. Were we to decide to hold the capital spend back further, for further into the future, the WPCA could make the recommendation on an adjustment of fees based on that. I'm not sure it would be dramatic or not. That could be looked at, and I think has been promised to be looked at as we move forward. I don't know if I answered your question now. I probably talked too much.
No, you didn't. Well, and my big thing with this was the capital expenditures that typically or often get weighted for the following year and the following year and the following year. That's part of the problem, is being, looking at a small budget. Those are the first things to be cut. This is a way to keep those capital plans moving forward. So I appreciate that. And I guess I'm hopeful that we can take this rate and drop it potentially in the next few years if we see that we don't need this amount of money. But I appreciate the fact that the goal is to keep it steady. Mr. Dempsey brought up, where does the extra $3 million? It actually looks more like, well, okay, so last year's was $2 million. This year we're looking at 4.9. So yes, it's about $3 million. So the question is, where does the extra $3 million go?
Capital projects.
So sorry, I really can't hear anything in here.
There's capital projects of $900,000, almost $1 million. Okay, there are other capital projects of another $100,000. There is bond fund expenditure projects of $425,000. There is $325,000 in debt service requirements for your new, you have a new bond issue that is going to start to be amortized. and there's a $70,000 that's going to be contributed to a cash reserve fund, so that as projects come up in the future, they'll be funded partly from without borrowing.
And then the last gentleman, I didn't catch your last name.
Rich Aspinwall.
Thank you. Said, feels that it's an unfair burden on young families with children. So I'm asking that you address that.
That's the hardest one. The fee is currently based on a user base, meaning the more water we use, the more that your bill is going to reflect, just like the water bill. All the rate comparisons we did in the study was based on 2 mills, because basically every mill of the city budget is $1 million. So we removed about $2 million from the city budget. That's what all the comparisons were based on.
So you feel like the tax is going down for the young families would kind of compensate? Is that what you're...
By the way the whole study worked, the 85% of the residential users should spend less than 2 mills.
One of the challenges that you face is how do you get to the math? And if you just take last year's mill rate and subtract this year's mill rate from it, you're going to come up with 0.064, and that's not anywhere near, or 0.64, that's not near the 2 mil, right? So that's where the disparity is, and that's where people are having a hard time wrapping their heads around this. If we'd have left this in, the taxes and the mill rate would have went up 1.11 million. That's true. We didn't do that, we pulled it out. So let's account for the rest of that. In the beginning of the year, when I started looking at this year's budget, we had a 2% increase based on negotiated salaries. We also had $460,000 in increase due to insurances and some other benefits. And due to a lost court case between the town and Pfizer, we had a $230,000 decrease in revenue. So that's right around $700,000. So you're talking about almost $750,000. In addition, at the end of this year, just before the budget that you guys approved, we received another $90,000 hole in revenue on a go-forward basis due to another lawsuit that the town lost with personal property. And there's some money that I have in contingency and some money that I have set aside so that we will levelize the tax burden next year based on a 3% growth rate to levelize it so the taxes don't go up next year. So when you add all those up, that's where most of that difference comes into play. So people can like it or not like it, but it's not a lie, it's the truth. Let me show you the math. The challenge that we run into is that we said, here's what we're going to get, and then there were things that eat into that, and then your actualized mill rate, or what you're actually feeling that you're saving, is that difference, and that's what everybody's focusing on. And that's what it is. Did that answer your question? Or help?
It was not my question.
But, Councilor Depot.
Sorry, more questions. So you listed all the things that were the extra costs in between what the revenue we had last year through the sewer tax compared to this year through the sewer fee. And I guess my question is, the way you presented them, they're all required. We have debt service and all of that. So what would have happened if we didn't pull this out and fund it from the sewer fees with all of those budget items? How would we have paid for them before?
if we hadn't have pulled them out.
Right, so,
If we would have, the operating expenses, the $2 million, plus the increase in the debt service, plus the increase in over last year to this year's operating expense for the WPC, for the PAF based on negotiated raises, and what their portion of the expenses would have been an increase of about 1.11 mil.
so that's
So
that.
the tax rate would have went from 5.22 to 6.33. As it is now, the tax rate is 4.58. It was 4.50, and then the town lost the lawsuit from Pfizer with a $90,000 hit in revenue on a go-forward basis, and that's when we come up with a 4.58 for the mill rate. Did that answer your question? Get close?
Kind of.
Okay. Please continue.
I guess I was more saying, so if there's, say, this $3 million gap, and you listed those expenses, those unforeseen things that we had to account for in the taxes already.
Yes, but if you add those, that's still less than the 4 million here, because there's a $2 million well, there's a $2 million here for projects and for put aside of money to build that account.
Right. So my question is that $2 million that are putting aside for projects and things, is that would have just been added to the taxes if we didn't separate it out?
Well, we would have had to do one of two things. We would have either increased the taxes due to debt service, because we would have had to bond more, or if I had $1 million project, I would have had to raise taxes by $1 million, and $1 million is about 1 mil. And I did not want to raise taxes for an infrastructure project like that. I did not want to do that. Finance Director, you want?
I think I'm following the questions. If the sewer was to stay in the city's general fund budget, the way that it was presented, with no capital in it, there would have been a 2 mil increase from where the mill rate is set to at this point. That's what that in tune would have done, with the budget being exactly how it was approved. And then the one other thing I just wanted to correct, on the 90,000, that was not a lawsuit. That was just a change of assessment appeals of personal property for Pfizer. So I just wanted to clarify that wasn't,
You're right.
that one wasn't from a lawsuit.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
does that help?
Yes.
This gives it a right title. You still lost the 90,000. But thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Depot, do you have any more questions?
I do, if that's
Okay,
okay.
please continue.
Okay, I have a few specific questions about the page with the spreadsheet on it. Page 5. The item of free city sewer service is listed first as a negative, then as a positive, then as a positive again.
Probably should have not even left it there. It just opened up too many questions. But the point is that the free city sewer service is billed out on a commercial classification. Okay, so that is why, and this was set up so that if we had been able to designate how much was residential, how much was commercial, how much was industrial, and we couldn't pull that apart in time to get this done, we would have shown the commercial revenue there as whatever it was, less the $9,000 of city sewer, and then the city sewer would be on the next line. This is the way we show it on the water division and on the electric division's financial statements. We show it as a separate item, even though they were billed out in commercial. They're part of the total of 4.9. It's confusing, I know, and I should have not left it that way.
Okay. And I think my very last question, if that's okay. Can you, this might be a stupid question, but I'm new to the budgets. Can you explain in a kind of concise way depreciation? Because it is listed in a couple different places, and it's a little bit confusing.
Sure.
And it's probably a kind of basic question, but.
Well, depreciation is the value of your plant that gets amortized over its life. It's recorded as an expense on the profit and loss statement, but it was paid for. If you paid for it today, you're depreciating some of it tomorrow. So tomorrow, in the next fiscal year, it shows up as an expense. However, the cash has already gone out. So when you're doing the cash flow, I think that might be what you're asking, is why are we adding the depreciation back to in the cash flow? Because it's not an expense of that year. That is an amortization number over the 20 years or whatever it is that the life of the asset. It was paid for before. That's the depreciation expense you get to take on the profit side, and on the cash flow side, you add that back into your net income because it's not cash.
It's just kind of confusing, but okay.
I'm sorry if I can't do a better explanation. It's second nature to me, and as an accountant, and perhaps.
Can I make one final, maybe not question, but kind of comment?
Sure. You have the floor.
I find this to be kind of confusing. I understand that as an accountant that it makes sense to you. And I mean, I've spent a lot of time looking at it, and it's still, you kind of have to like focus really hard and like read everything. I would really like to see something a little easier maybe next year for the budget. The city budget to me was easier to read than this, and it just feels very confusing. And I think if it was simpler, it would be simpler to maybe pass.
We can work on making it a little bit simpler if that's possible. The difference is that we're actually doing the cash flow in the run rates on an operating $95 million business. You're running a $95 million a year business, and we're actually running, so the electric company is $55 million, the water company is about $10 million, the sewage company is about $5 million, and Basra Light and Power is somewhere between $20 and $25 million. So we're actually trying to show a lot in a very little amount of time. And I've been thinking about this, and I believe this is on point. One of my weak points is governance in a position such as this, and I'm trying to figure out how to give guidance on how to help you guide the business. And that's actually one of my personal goals, is to figure that out, because to a certain extent, at this level, we may be able to take a simple business version that says, these are what the expenses are, these is the way the cash flow are running in aggregate, so that you can feel comfortable that the business is operating at the right parameters. And then as we go down in different levels through the utility commission and then through the different departments, we kind of segregate different detail levels of the budget. How much detail do you bring to any given level? And I must admit, I will take your suggestions and would love to sit with each and every one of you and listen to that a bit, because I'm not sure how to teach you how to drive the business myself, because this is my first municipal utility. I was hired more out of the private sector and doing things separately. So everything that David brings to the table and the way we're actually doing the cash flows and the way we did these cost of service studies to determine that, the checkbook needs to have this amount at the end of every year and all that, put some guidelines in my head that aren't necessarily guidelines that we're showing you explicitly with what the budget is. But we are, because David, we took the cost of service guidelines and these budgets were driven by that. So it's a great comment, and I will try to work on that.
One of the things that we're going to do is that now that the council is no longer the WPCA, you don't have that WPCA meeting every month. So one of the things that we're going to do is monthly, I'm going to have the utilities director brief you, probably at the Cal, but I haven't totally worked this out with him yet, and brief you on water, electric, and sewer. That way you guys get a briefing every month on all three aspects of that business. So, because my intent is to make you guys smarter, make the council smarter on the operation of the three legs of the business. I think you guys need more exposure to this. I think we have not done that as extensively in the past as we're going to do in the future, and that's something I've been looking at. I'm also going to bring the other department heads in front of you so that the department heads can start talking to you and to the public about their departments, so that more information can get out to you guys about the operation of the municipality and out to the public at large, so that people can better understand what we're doing. So hopefully you guys are in agreement with that.
Sorry, can I just say one final thing? I don't mean to diminish, I understand that it's a big company and I do appreciate what you've done. So I understand that it's hard to put that together for the whole giant budget. But I think as a council looking for cost saving opportunities, it's virtually impossible to do that with such a high level of information in the budget. That's all.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments on the sewer budget? Okay, Councilor Sheffield.
I think in Councilor Depot's discussion regarding condensing, the budget and maybe simplifying, I think these little sheets that when you guys do your presentations kind of is like a short briefing of it, so to speak, as far as how the numbers go. And then you could do, let's say, what you see here, and then compare it to your big sheet, and then make your self-analysis to where maybe something could be cut out of a line item that you see that translate to a short briefing that they may present to us annually. Something that, that they normally do. They give us that briefing, and then they give us something like this, a little shortcut, but maybe they can add a little extra to it, possibly, maybe define a few more numbers than usual, but then you can make your comparison to the big numbers, which they have to show us, and, make your analysis from there, and then see what you, may want to look to cut or to revise at some point.
Well, one of the reasons that I want to have the monthly to talk about electric, water, and sewer monthly is so that next year when we're doing this, you'll be more familiar with it, because you get to see it once a year. And then we're asking you to digest a lot of information, basically a year's worth or more of information in that one little period, and we're asking you to vote on a budget. My intent is to give you more information so that you're more knowledgeable, and while I'm doing it with the utility, I'm going to spread that out to the other departments in the municipality so you get more familiar with what's going on with the municipality. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimously. Councilor Sheffield.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution R-18-6-72. Therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and Council appoint a member of the City Council to serve on the Groton Utilities Community Service Awards Selection Committee. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is a new motion. This has not been discussed in the Committee of the Whole. We have the Jacqueline B. Nixon Award that will be awarded during the during City Day, and so we have a committee that reviews the applications. I'm asking for someone from the council to be the representative on that committee. Is there anybody who would like to be on the committee?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What does that entail? Are there like meetings that you have to go to, or you just get information, or?
Can you come? No? Sorry. Frank, if you could, I was on this committee once, but I'll let Frank address it. This is Frank Winkler. He's with Key Accounts with the Groton Utilities.
The nominations close on June 30th of every year, and usually 10 days to 2 weeks after that, the committee convenes. The committee is myself. I've chaired it for the first 14, 15 years of the award. We have one counselor, one utility commissioner, and we rotate 2 Groton Utilities employees every year. So we have a balance of opinions, and so it can't be, so it's fair. And I think we made a lot of good decisions every year. And it's probably an hour, if we get too many nominations, it may be an hour and a half or something, but usually we're able to expedite it in about an hour's time, depending. The toughest part of it is making the final decision, because we usually have some outstanding applicants from our citizens in the city of Groton, and the biggest decision is who we're going to honor that particular year. Just as a sidebar, this was an outgrowth of Groton Utilities' 100th anniversary in 2004. That whole 100th anniversary was organized by a utility committee, but they decided they wanted to do something special carrying forward because one of our sub-themes is giving back to the community. So we're very proud of the award, and hopefully you are too.
And let me tell you something, the packages that you review that come before you are pretty tough. I mean, there's a lot of people that give back to their community, and you go through them, but it is absolutely a reward being on that committee. I was on it once, and it was a tremendous opportunity. So is there anyone who would like to volunteer for that? And if we have no volunteers, is there anybody who'd like to step out for a minute?
I'll do it.
You'll do it?
Yeah.
All right. Councilor Carter. Okay, and that's it. So we don't need to vote on this since we have a volunteer. Well, since we
Vote
have,
on appointing them, right?
so we have to vote on it. Okay, and all in favor of Councilor Carter being the representative, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. There is no executive session. I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I'm going to be adjourned.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We're adjourned.